She stands naked before the vampire king, her identical twin beside her, as he asks the question that will change everything. Will you stay if we undress? The council chamber erupts. 3 vampires lie dead. And the twins realize the man who saved them wants far more than gratitude. He wants their surrender, their bodies, their souls. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from and don't forget to click subscribe. Rain hammered against the cobblestones like 1,000 desperate fingers. Vivienne pressed her sister closer, their bodies shaking beneath the soaked silk of their matching red dresses. The alley reeked of decay and old blood, but they had nowhere else to hide. Not anymore. Not after what they'd witnessed. 3 men with fangs and eyes like burning coals had cornered them 20 minutes ago. The twins had run, their heels clicking frantically through Shanghai's ancient streets, but predators always caught their prey eventually. Vivienne felt her sister Valerie trembling against her, felt the frantic drumming of her twin's heart matching her own terrified rhythm. "We're going to die here." Valerie's whisper was barely audible over the storm. "Together. Like we came into this world." Vivienne couldn't answer. Her throat was too tight with fear. They'd only been in China for 3 days, hired as translators for a tech conference that now seemed like a lifetime ago. Beautiful, identical twins with platinum blonde hair and ice blue eyes, they'd thought themselves lucky to land such a prestigious job. Now they understood they'd been marked, selected, hunted. The first vampire emerged from the shadows, his smile revealing fangs that gleamed wet in the dim light. "American girls," he purred in Mandarin, then switched to heavily accented English. So far from home, so deliciously terrified, his companions flanked him, blocking any escape. "You smell exquisite. Pure. Untouched by our kind." "Please," Vivienne managed, her voice cracking. "We won't tell anyone. We'll leave China tonight. We swear." "Oh, you'll leave," the vampire agreed, circling them like a shark. "But not the way you imagine." His hand shot out, grabbing Vivienne's wrist with crushing force. She cried out, and Valerie lunged at him, nails raking across his face. He backhanded her casually, sending her sprawling into the wet pavement. "Don't touch her," Vivienne screamed, struggling against his grip. The other 2 vampires laughed, moving toward Valerie's prone form. "No, no, please. Anything but this." The vampire holding Vivienne yanked her against his chest, his mouth descending toward her throat. She felt his breath, cold and dead, against her racing pulse. "This will only hurt for a moment," he whispered. "Then you'll beg for more. Release them." The voice cut through the rain like a blade through silk. Every vampire in the alley froze. The authority in those 2 words was absolute, ancient, terrifying in its quiet power. Vivienne's captor's grip loosened slightly. She twisted to see who had spoken, and her breath caught. A man stood at the alley's entrance, tall and impossibly elegant in a black suit that seemed to repel the rain. His hair was dark as midnight, pulled back from a face that could have been carved from pale marble. But it was his eyes that made her heart stutter. Silver gray, ancient, and currently burning with controlled fury. "Lord Kieran," the vampire holding Vivienne stammered, releasing her so quickly she stumbled. "We didn't know this territory was claimed. We thought—" "You thought nothing." The man's voice remained soft, but something in it made the temperature drop. "These streets are mine. These humans are under my protection." His silver eyes swept over the 3 vampires with cold contempt. "Leave. Now. Before I decide conversation is wasteful." The vampires scattered like smoke in wind, vanishing into the storm with supernatural speed. Vivienne collapsed against the wall, her legs finally giving out. Beside her, Valerie pushed herself up from the pavement, blood trickling from a split lip. The man who called himself Lord Kieran approached slowly, his movements liquid and precise. Up close, he was even more devastating. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings. Ancient beauty, timeless and cold. His silver eyes studied them with an intensity that made Vivian feel transparent. "You're injured," he observed, his gaze fixing on Valerie's bleeding lip. "The scent of your blood is drawing attention. We need to leave this place immediately." "Who are you?" Vivian demanded, though her voice shook. "What are you?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Someone who saves foolish humans from walking into vampire territory after dark." He extended a hand toward Valerie. "Can you stand?" Valerie stared at his outstretched hand like it might burn her. "You're one of them. A vampire." "Yes." His honesty was startling. "But unlike them, I don't feed on unwilling prey. I also don't leave bleeding humans in alleys for every hungry creature in Shanghai to find. Now, can you stand? Or shall I carry you?" Heat flooded Vivienne's face at the image his words conjured. This beautiful, dangerous creature carrying Valerie in his arms. She pushed herself to her feet, moving to help her sister up. "We can manage." "Stubborn," he murmured, something that might have been approval flickering in his ancient eyes. "Follow me, and try to keep up." He moved through the rain-soaked streets with purpose, never checking to see if they followed. Vivienne and Valerie exchanged glances, then hurried after him. What choice did they have? At least this vampire had saved them. For now. They walked for 15 minutes, leaving the decrepit alley district behind for streets lined with luxury boutiques and high-end restaurants. The twins' heels clicked in rhythm, their wet dresses clinging uncomfortably. Vivian noticed how people seemed to part for Kieran without him saying a word, how even in the crowd, space opened around him like he carried his own gravitational field. Finally, Kieran stopped before a building that looked like it had stood for centuries. Ornate stonework, Gothic architecture, windows that gleamed like dark eyes in the night. "My residence," he said simply, producing a key that looked older than the building itself. "You'll be safe here while we determine what to do with you." "Do with us?" Valerie's voice held an edge. "We're not possessions." "No," Kieran agreed, pushing open the heavy door. "Your complications. Beautiful, bleeding, twin complications that every vampire in this city will now be hunting." He gestured inside. "After you." The interior was breathtaking. Marble floors stretched away into shadows, lit by chandeliers that cast everything in warm golden light. The walls were lined with art that belonged in museums. Vivienne recognized a Monet, a Renoir, what looked like an original Van Gogh. But it was the temperature that struck her first. Cold, like walking into a tomb. "No," she corrected herself, "like walking into a vampire's lair." Kieran led them through corridors that seemed to shift and twist, past rooms filled with furniture from different eras. Ming Dynasty chairs sat beside Victorian settees. Ancient tapestries hung near modern abstract paintings. It was like walking through history itself. They climbed a sweeping staircase, the banister smooth as silk under Vivian's trembling hand. Finally, Kieran stopped at a door carved with intricate symbols that seemed to move in peripheral vision. "Guest quarters," he said. "There's a bathroom through there. Clean yourselves up. I'll have clothing sent up." "We have clothes," Vivian started. Soaked through and reeking of fear sweat, he interrupted, not unkindly. "Every supernatural creature within a mile radius can smell you. Fresh clothes will help mask the scent." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at them with those silver eyes that seemed to see everything. "Don't attempt to leave the building. My wards will prevent it. And honestly, you wouldn't survive an hour in the streets. Not now that you've been marked." "Marked?" Valerie demanded. "What does that mean?" "It means—" Kieran's silver eyes met hers with disturbing intensity. that 3 vampires now know your scent. They'll share it with their coven. By morning, every vampire in Shanghai will be hunting for the identical twin Americans who smell like virgin blood and fear. His gaze swept over both of them, lingering in a way that made heat pool low in Vivian's belly despite her terror. You're in far more danger than you realize. He left, the door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded like a cell locking. Vivienne and Valerie stood frozen for a moment, processing everything that had happened in the last hour. Their wet dresses dripped onto the plush carpet. Their hair hung in sodden waves. They looked like drowned rats. And yet that vampire had looked at them like they were treasures. Then Valerie's knees buckled. Vivienne caught her, holding her twin close as they both started to shake. Not from cold, but from the adrenaline finally crashing through their systems. "We're alive," Vivienne whispered against Valerie's wet hair. "We're alive." "For how long?" Valerie's voice was muffled against Vivienne's shoulder. "Those things wanted to drain us, Viv. Turn us into monsters or sell us like cattle. But they didn't. That vampire, Kieran, he stopped them." Vivienne pulled back, looking at her sister's face, her own face reflected back with the same terror and confusion. "He saved us. Why, though?" Valerie's ice-blue eyes searched Vivienne's identical ones. "What does he want?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to voice. Vivienne thought of the way Kieran's silver gaze had traced over them, assessing, appreciating. The way he'd said they were in danger now that they'd been marked. The way his voice had dropped when he'd mentioned their virgin blood. "Come on," Vivienne said, trying to inject confidence she didn't feel into her voice. "Let's get out of these wet clothes before we freeze." The bathroom was a revelation. All marble and gold fixtures, with a shower large enough for 4 people and a bathtub that looked like it could fit 6. Heated floors radiated warmth beneath their bare feet as they stripped out of the ruined red dresses. Steam rose from multiple shower heads as Vivienne turned on the water. They stepped under the spray together, as they'd done countless times growing up. Being twins meant boundaries were different. They'd shared everything their whole lives: a womb, a bedroom, clothes, dreams. Standing naked together under hot water felt natural, comforting in a world that had suddenly become terrifying. "I can't stop shaking," Valerie admitted as water sluiced over her pale skin. "Every time I close my eyes, I see those fangs, feel that thing's hand on my face." "I know." Vivienne reached for expensive shampoo that smelled of jasmine and something exotic she couldn't name. She worked it through Valerie's platinum hair with gentle fingers, the familiar ritual soothing them both. "But we're safe now. At least for tonight." "Are we, though?" Valerie closed her eyes as Vivienne's fingers massaged her scalp. "That vampire, Kieran, he's not human. He's one of them. What if he's just a different kind of predator? Then why save us? Why bring us to his home?" Vivienne rinsed Valerie's hair, then switched positions so her sister could return the favor. "If he wanted to hurt us, he could have left us in that alley. Maybe he wants something else?" Valerie's voice was quiet as she worked shampoo through Vivienne's hair. Her fingers found the tension in Vivienne's scalp, kneading gently. "Did you see the way he looked at us? Like we were fascinating puzzles he wanted to solve." Vivienne had seen it. That intense silver gaze that seemed to strip away pretense and see directly into their souls. It should have terrified her. Instead, she'd felt something else entirely. A heat that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with a curiosity she'd never experienced before. They finished washing in silence, using soaps that smelled of exotic spices and flowers. When they finally stepped out, fluffy white towels waited on heated racks. Vivienne wrapped one around herself, then paused at the mirror. The woman staring back looked different somehow. Her ice-blue eyes were wider, pupils dilated. Her cheeks were flushed from the hot water. Her lips looked fuller, redder. Beside her, Valerie's reflection was identical, and yet Vivian could see the same change in her twin. They looked more alive somehow, awakened. A soft knock at the bedroom door made them both jump. A woman's voice, cultured and British, called through the wood. "Lord Kieran has sent clothing for you. I'm leaving it on the bed." "Thank you," Vivian called back, hearing footsteps retreat. They emerged from the bathroom to find an array of clothing laid out. But not the casual wear Vivian had expected. Silk robes in deep crimson, impossibly soft, with nothing underneath. No bras, no panties, just the robes meant to be worn against bare skin. "He has a sense of humor," Valerie muttered, running her fingers over the fabric. "Dressing us like we're already his." "Don't," Vivian warned, though heat crept up her neck at the thought. "We're just guests. Temporary complications, remember?" But her hands trembled slightly as she let her towel drop and slipped into the robe. The silk whispered against her naked skin, cool and sensual. It clung to her damp body, outlining every curve. There was no way to wear this and maintain modesty. Every movement made the fabric shift, revealing the swell of her chest, the curve of her hip, the length of her leg. Valerie put hers on with shaking hands. Together they stood before the full-length mirror, and Vivian's breath caught. They looked like twins from an ancient harem. Platinum hair tumbling in damp waves past their shoulders. Ice blue eyes huge in pale faces. Crimson silk molding to identical bodies, revealing as much as it concealed. "This is obscene," Valerie whispered. "We look like offerings." "Maybe that's the point," Vivian said quietly. "Maybe he wants us to understand what we've walked into." Before Valerie could respond, another knock sounded. This time, deeper, more commanding. "Come in," Vivian called, pulling the robe tighter even though it did nothing to preserve modesty. Kieran entered carrying a tray with wine and fresh fruit. His silver eyes swept over them in their matching robes, and something flickered in those ancient depths. Hunger, raw and undisguised for just a moment before he controlled it. "Better," he said, his voice slightly rougher. "The scent of fear is fading." "We're not afraid of you," Valerie lied, lifting her chin. His smile was knowing, devastating. "You should be. I'm far more dangerous than the three who attacked you." He set the tray on a low table, then poured wine into crystal glasses with practiced ease. "But I'm also your only chance at survival. Those vampires who cornered you? They belong to a coven that specializes in trafficking. Beautiful humans disappear from their lives, enslaved to vampire households across Asia." Vivian felt sick. Why would they target us? "Because you're extraordinary." Kieran handed each twin a glass, his fingers brushing theirs in the exchange. The contact sent electricity racing up Vivian's arm. "Identical twins are rare. Identical twins with your particular features, virgin blood, and no family to miss them?" His silver eyes held hers. "You're worth a fortune on the vampire black market." "How do you know we have no family?" Valerie demanded. "How do you know we're virgins?" "I know everything about you," Kieran replied calmly, settling into a chair that looked like it belonged in a throne room. "Vivienne and Valerie Chen, 24 years old, orphaned at 16 when your parents died in a car accident. No siblings, no extended family. You put yourselves through university working 3 jobs, graduated top of your class in linguistics. This is your first international assignment." He sipped his wine. "As for your virginity, I can smell it. Untouched innocence has a very particular scent." Heat flooded Vivienne's cheeks. The twins had never prioritized relationships. Between school and work, there'd been no time. And if she was honest, the few boys who'd shown interest had always felt wrong somehow. Too ordinary, too predictable. She'd wanted something more. Something she couldn't name. Until now. until this ancient vampire with silver eyes and a voice like dark silk looked at her like she was both salvation and damnation. Tell me, Kieran continued, his gaze moving between them with predatory focus. Why did you accept this assignment? Shanghai isn't exactly beginner-friendly. The money, Valerie admitted. They offered triple the standard rate. We thought it was because we speak Mandarin fluently. They offered triple because they were recruiting for the trafficking ring. Kieran's voice turned cold as winter. The tech conference was real, but you were never meant to leave. They've been grooming targets for months, buying tickets for promising candidates, young women who fit certain physical criteria. He studied them both. You're lucky I found you first. Lucky, Vivian repeated bitterly, sinking onto the edge of the massive bed. The robe shifted with the movement, exposing one pale thigh. She saw Kieran's eyes track the revealed skin before returning to her face. Is that what this is? Would you prefer I'd left you to them? His voice held an edge now. Those vampires would have drained you both, turned you, sold you to the highest bidder. You'd spend eternity as playthings for creatures who view humans as nothing more than food and entertainment. And you? The question burst from Vivienne before she could stop it. What do you view us as? The silence stretched, thick and charged. Kieran set down his wineglass and stood with that predatory grace. He moved closer, and despite herself, Vivienne found she couldn't look away from those silver eyes. Valerie moved to stand beside her twin, their shoulders touching in unconscious solidarity. When he finally spoke, Kieran's voice was softer, almost contemplative. I view you as survivors, as women with strength they don't yet recognize. He stopped directly before them, close enough that Vivian could feel the cold radiating from his body. And yes, he added, heat bleeding into his tone, as extraordinarily beautiful creatures who have no idea the effect they have. What effect? Vivian's voice came out breathier than intended. You walk into a room and every eye turns. Kieran's silver gaze moved between them with deliberate slowness. You move in perfect synchronization, like a dance only you two know. When one speaks, the other finishes her sentences. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and traced a finger along Vivienne's jawline. Her breath caught at the touch. His skin was ice against her fevered flesh, smooth and impossibly cold. But instead of recoiling, she found herself leaning into it, craving more of that shocking temperature contrast. Beside her, Valerie stood frozen, eyes wide as Kieran's finger moved from Vivienne's jaw to her lips, tracing the curve with deliberate precision. In vampire society, he continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to wrap around them both, twins are considered sacred, rare, extraordinarily valuable. His finger moved to Valerie's jaw now, repeating the same gentle exploration. Not because of what you can do, but because of what you represent. Perfect symmetry, doubled beauty, doubled pleasure. The last word hung in the air, heavy with implication. Vivienne's heart hammered against her ribs. She should pull away, should protest, should maintain some dignity. Instead, she found herself swaying closer, drawn by something primal and undeniable. Valuable, Valerie echoed, and Vivienne heard the tremor in her sister's voice. You keep using that word. Because it's true. Kieran's hand dropped away, but he didn't step back. But not in the way you fear. The trafficking coven sees you as commodities, objects to be bought and sold. His silver eyes burned with intensity. I see you as something infinitely more precious, irreplaceable, unique. Why? Vivian demanded. You don't know us. We're just humans you happen to save. You're wrong on both counts. Kieran moved away, giving them space to breathe, and retrieved his wineglass. I've been watching you for 3 days, since you arrived in Shanghai and walked into my territory radiating vulnerability. You've been stalking us, Valerie said flatly. Protecting you, he corrected. Though you didn't know it, every moment you've spent in this city, you've been under my observation. He smiled, sharp and knowing. Why do you think those vampires didn't attack sooner? Why do you think you made it through 3 days unharmed? You were keeping them away, Vivian realized. But why? Why protect two strangers? Because the moment I saw you, Kieran said simply, I knew you were meant to be mine. Call it instinct, fate, destiny. 3,000 years of existence, and I've never felt this pull toward anyone. His eyes held theirs. So yes, I watched you, learned your routines, made sure no one touched what belonged to me. We don't belong to you, Valerie protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Not yet, Kieran agreed. That's your choice to make. But make no mistake, from the moment you set foot in Shanghai, you became mine. Every vampire in this territory knows it. Why do you think those three acted tonight? They were making a desperate play, hoping to claim you before I could. This is insane, Vivian whispered, sinking onto the bed. Her robe rode up her thighs, exposing skin that looked like porcelain against the crimson silk. 24 hours ago, we were normal women with normal lives that were about to end brutally. Kieran's voice gentled slightly. Those vampires would have drained you both tonight, turned you against your will, sold you into slavery. He moved closer again. I'm offering you a choice they never would have given you. What choice? Valerie asked. Stay here as your prisoners or leave and be hunted by every vampire in the city. Stay here as my companions, live under my protection, learn to navigate my world. Kieran's silver eyes moved between them. Or leave at dawn with enough money to start over anywhere on Earth. I'll provide new identities, passports, everything you need to disappear. He paused. But understand, once you're marked, you'll always be in danger. Vampires have long memories and excellent networks. You might survive months or even years before someone finds you. Or you might not survive the week. That's not much of a choice, Vivian said bitterly. It's the only honest one I can give you. Kieran's voice held no apology. I won't lie to you. I won't pretend the world you've stumbled into isn't dangerous. But I will promise that if you stay, if you accept my protection, no one will harm you. Ever. And what do you get in return? The question hung between them. What do you want from us? Kieran was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes studying them with that unnerving intensity. When he spoke, his voice was rougher, laden with barely controlled desire. I want your company, your presence, the sound of your laughter filling these empty halls. His gaze darkened. I want to watch you move through my home, wearing silk and nothing else, knowing you chose to stay. I want to teach you everything about my world, see wonder in your eyes as you discover pleasures humans never dream of. He moved closer, close enough that Vivian could smell him now. Not cologne, but something deeper. Ancient stone and winter nights and something indefinably masculine that made her body respond in ways she'd never experienced. And when you're ready, when you beg me for it, I want to taste you, both of you. Learn every sound you make, every secret place that makes you gasp, every hidden desire you've never dared speak aloud. Vivian's mouth went dry. Heat pooled between her thighs, sudden and shocking. She'd never felt arousal this intense, this all-consuming. It terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Beside her, Valerie's breathing had quickened, her chest rising and falling rapidly beneath the thin silk. We're not, she started, then stopped, seeming to struggle for words. We've never even... we haven't... I know, Kieran interrupted gently. Untouched, innocent, waiting for someone worthy of your surrender. His smile was devastating. I've had 3,000 years to perfect the art of pleasure. I promise you, when you finally give yourselves to me, I'll make it worth the wait. You're very confident, Vivienne managed, though her voice shook. I'm very patient, he corrected, and I always get what I want eventually. He reached out and cupped Vivienne's face fully now, his cold hand cradling her cheek with surprising gentleness. But I won't take. I won't compel or force or manipulate. When you come to me, and you will come to me, it will be because you chose it. Because you want it so desperately you can't breathe for wanting. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, the touch sending sparks of sensation racing through her body. I can smell your arousal, he murmured. Taste it in the air like the sweetest wine. Your bodies are already responding to me, already imagining what it would feel like to surrender completely. Vivienne wanted to deny it, wanted to pull away and restore some dignity, but she couldn't. Not when every word he spoke was true, not when her body was betraying her so completely, growing wet and ready for a touch that hadn't even come yet. Kieran released her and stepped back, his silver eyes glittering with barely leashed hunger. The offer stands until dawn. After that, I withdraw my protection and you face the consequences alone. He moved toward the door. Sleep. You're safe here tonight. Tomorrow, you decide what kind of life you want. Wait, Valerie called as he reached the threshold. Why us? Truly, there must be hundreds of beautiful women in Shanghai. Why are we so special? Kieran turned back, and for just a moment his ancient mask slipped. What Vivienne saw beneath stole her breath. Loneliness. A vast, echoing loneliness that came from living 3,000 years and never finding someone who truly understood. Because, he said quietly, in all my long existence, I've never encountered anything like you. Two souls so perfectly matched they share one heartbeat. Beauty that exists in duplicate, impossible, and perfect. He met both their eyes. You're not just special, you're a miracle, and I've been waiting millennia to find you. Then he was gone, the door closing with soft finality. Vivienne and Valerie sat frozen on the bed, their matching robes askew, their bodies still humming with unfulfilled desire. Finally, Valerie laughed, high and slightly hysterical. Did that really just happen? Did a 3,000-year-old vampire king just proposition us? Proposition? Vivienne repeated numbly. That felt like more than a proposition. That felt like a claiming, a seduction, a promise of things we can barely imagine. Her body still tingled where he'd touched her. The phantom press of his thumb against her lip made her shiver. And lower, that aching heat between her thighs that demanded attention, demanded relief, demanded him. Viv. Valerie's voice was quiet, shaky. I felt it too. What he said about being aroused. I've never, she swallowed hard. I've never felt like this before. Like my skin is too tight. Like I need something I can't name. I know, Vivienne admitted, meeting her twin's eyes. I feel it too. This desperate, aching want. She touched her lips where Kieran's thumb had traced. We should be terrified. We should be planning our escape. But instead, all I can think about is what it would feel like to let him do everything he promised. Valerie finished. Her hand found Vivienne's, their fingers linking automatically. What's wrong with us? Why aren't we more afraid? Maybe because he's right, Vivienne said slowly. Maybe because we've spent our whole lives being good girls, working hard, staying safe, following rules. And where did it get us? She looked around the opulent room. We walked straight into a trap because we were too focused on being responsible. So what do? Valerie asked. Vivienne thought about it, about the trafficking coven hunting them, about running and hiding for the rest of their lives, about Kieran's silver eyes and cold touch and promises of pleasure beyond imagining, about the fact that her body was still humming with need, still craving more of what he'd barely begun to give. I think, she said slowly, we stop being afraid. Stop running. Stop hiding from what we want. She met her twin's gaze. He's giving us a choice. Real agency for maybe the first time in our lives. We can leave and spend forever looking over our shoulders. Or we can stay and see where this leads. You want to stay? Valerie said. Not a question. Don't you? Vivian challenged. Don't you want to know what it feels like when he touches us with intent? When those cold hands explore every inch of our skin? When he makes good on all those promises? Valerie's breath caught. God help me, yes. Yes. I want to know. I want to feel it. Her cheeks flushed. I want to feel everything he described and more. Then we stay, Vivian decided. Together, like always. We face this new world together. They lay back on the enormous bed, still in their silk robes, hands clasped between them. Neither spoke about the wetness gathering between their thighs. Neither acknowledged how their bodies ached for a vampire's cold touch. But as they drifted toward exhausted sleep, both twins were imagining the same thing. Kieran's silver eyes burning with hunger, his voice promising pleasure they couldn't imagine, and the moment, soon, when they would finally surrender everything he'd asked for. Vivian woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she didn't remember closing. Beside her, Valerie still slept, platinum hair fanned across silk pillows like spun silver. For a moment, wrapped in warmth and comfort, Vivian could almost pretend the previous night had been a fever dream. Then she moved and felt the crimson robe slide against her naked skin underneath, and reality came flooding back. The attack. The rescue. Kieran's silver eyes and devastating promises. The choice they'd made in the dark hours before dawn. They were staying. They'd decided to surrender themselves to a 3,000-year-old vampire's protection. Vivian didn't know if that made them brave or insane. She slipped from the bed quietly, not wanting to wake Valerie yet. Across the room, a door she hadn't noticed last night stood slightly ajar. Curious, she padded toward it on bare feet, the marble floor cold against her soles. The space beyond stole her breath. A massive closet, perhaps calling it a room, would be more accurate, lined floor to ceiling with clothing. And not just any clothing. Designer labels she recognized from magazines, dresses in every color and style, casual wear that looked impossibly expensive, formal gowns that belonged on red carpets, and all of it in duplicate. 2 identical outfits of everything, perfectly sized for both her and Valerie. He was so certain we'd stay, she whispered to the empty room, so confident we couldn't resist. Her fingers traced over silk and cashmere and fabrics she couldn't name. Everything was exquisite, expensive, chosen with impeccable taste. At the far end, she found lingerie that made heat rush to her cheeks, delicate lace in jewel tones, silk that would feel like water against skin, sets that concealed nothing while somehow making nakedness more provocative. Someone had been very thorough in their preparations. Someone had imagined Vivian and Valerie wearing these things, had pictured them dressed and undressed in his home. A soft sound behind her made Vivian turn. Valerie stood in the doorway, her matching robe wrapped tight, eyes wide as she took in the closet's contents. He knew, she whispered. He knew we'd stay before we decided. Or he's very persuasive, Vivian replied, though her heart raced. Everything is duplicated, like he's been preparing for us. Preparing for his new pets, Valerie said, but there was no real heat in her words. Just a kind of odd resignation. They selected clothes together, as they'd done their whole lives. Simple jeans that fit like they'd been custom-made, soft cashmere sweaters in cream. When Vivian pulled hers on, she felt the quality immediately. This wasn't department store clothing. This was couture, tailored specifically for their measurements. How did he know our sizes? Valerie asked, running her hands over the perfect fit. He's had 3,000 years to learn how to acquire what he wants, Vivian said. I'm guessing accurate measurements are the least of his skills. They were just finishing when a knock sounded at the bedroom door. A woman's voice, cultured and British, called through. Good morning. Lord Kieran has requested you join him for breakfast in the solarium once you're dressed. Valerie opened the door to find an elegant woman in her 40s, dressed in a simple black dress. She had warm brown eyes and a kind smile that seemed genuine. I'm Mrs. Laurent, Lord Kieran's housekeeper. If you'll follow me? Breakfast? Vivian echoed. Vampires eat breakfast? Mrs. Laurent's smile widened. Lord Kieran maintains certain human customs for his staff and guests, and he's quite eager to know your decision about his proposal. She led them through corridors they hadn't seen the night before. In daylight filtering through tall windows, the house was even more impressive. They passed rooms filled with antiques, libraries that would make collectors weep, art galleries that rivaled museums. Everything spoke of age, wealth, and exquisite taste. How long have you worked for him? Valerie asked as they climbed a sweeping staircase. 15 years, Mrs. Laurent replied, though I suspect that seems like a blink to Lord Kieran. She glanced back at them with knowing eyes. He's a demanding employer, but fair, and protective of those under his care. Is he kind? The question slipped from Vivienne before she could stop it. Mrs. Laurent paused at a landing, considering. Kind is a human concept. Lord Kieran is ancient, powerful, and accustomed to absolute authority. But in all my years here, she met Vivian's eyes directly. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you two, like you're precious, irreplaceable. Heat crept up Vivian's neck. We only met him last night. Sometimes that's all it takes, Mrs. Laurent said simply, especially for someone who's been waiting 3,000 years to find what he didn't know he needed. They reached the top floor where morning sun flooded through glass walls. The solarium was a stunning space, filled with exotic plants and comfortable furniture. And at a table laid with silver and crystal sat Kieran, looking devastatingly beautiful in the morning light. He wore casual clothes today, dark pants and a crisp white shirt rolled to his elbows. His dark hair was still damp, like he'd recently showered. But it was his eyes that caught Vivienne's attention. Those silver depths tracked every movement as the twins entered, and predatory focus that made her pulse skip. Good morning, he said, his voice wrapping around them like dark silk. I trust you slept well? As well as possible given the circumstances, Vivienne replied, taking the seat he indicated. Valerie sat beside her, their shoulders touching in unconscious solidarity. Kieran poured coffee for them with precise, elegant movements. The scent was divine, rich, and dark. Steam curled from the cups like beckoning fingers. He set pastries and fruit before them, everything arranged with artistic precision. Have you reached a decision? He asked, his silver eyes moving between them. The twins exchanged glances, that wordless communication only they shared. They'd talked for hours after he left, weighing options, discussing fears and desires. In the end, the decision had been easier than it should have been. We have questions first, Valerie said, lifting her chin. Of course. Kieran leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. Ask anything. What exactly would our role be here? Vivian leaned forward. You said we'd be part of your household? Doing what? Initially, learning to navigate vampire society. Learning our laws, our customs, our dangers. He sipped his coffee, or what appeared to be coffee. You'd accompany me to social functions, act as my companions in public settings. Companions, Valerie repeated carefully. Is that a euphemism? It can be. Kieran's honesty was startling. In vampire society, companions can mean many things. Servants, confidants, lovers. He met their eyes directly. In your case, it would mean whatever you choose it to mean. You could be simply guests under my protection, or, his voice dropped slightly, you could be something more. More, Vivian echoed, her mouth suddenly dry. Partners, consorts, mine in every sense of the word. Kieran set down his cup. I won't pretend I don't want that. Last night I was very clear about my desires. But the choice of how far this goes, how intimate we become, that's entirely yours to make. And if we just want protection? Valerie asked. Nothing more? Then you have it. My word is absolute in this region. Under my protection, you're untouchable. Kieran's expression was serious. But I'll be honest, having you in my home, seeing you daily, sharing space with you, that will be exquisite torture if you choose to keep distance between us. Why? Vivian demanded. Why us specifically? You said last night that we're special. But I still don't understand why. Kieran was quiet for a long moment, his ageless eyes seeming to look through them to something beyond. Finally he stood, moving to the glass wall where morning sun painted him in gold. Because in 3,000 years I've met perhaps 5 people who truly saw me. Not the power, not the wealth, not the legend. Just me. And you too. He turned back to face them. You looked at me last night with fear. Yes. But also curiosity. Wonder. You didn't grovel or cower or try to seduce with obvious tactics. You were simply yourselves. Honest. Real. He moved closer, and Vivienne's breath caught as he knelt before their chairs, bringing himself to their eye level. That's rarer than you can possibly imagine. Most humans see a vampire and immediately become false. They perform what they think I want to see. He reached out, touching Vivienne's cheek with cold fingers. You don't perform. You feel. You react genuinely. It's intoxicating. His hand moved to Valerie's face now, mirroring the gesture. And the fact that there are 2 of you, identical but unique, moving in harmony, finishing each other's thoughts. His voice roughened. I've waited millennia for something this perfect. Vivienne felt heat pooling low in her belly again. Last night's aching want hadn't faded with sleep. If anything, it had intensified. Her body remembered his touch, craved more. Beside her, Valerie shifted slightly, and Vivienne knew her twin felt the same desperate need. We're staying, Vivienne said, the words emerging steady despite her racing heart. But we have conditions. Kieran's smile was slow, devastating. Name them. No compulsion, no vampire mind tricks. We make our own choices about everything. Vivian held his gaze, including how far this goes physically. Agreed, Kieran said immediately. I want you willing, eager, desperate for my touch. Compulsion would rob me of that pleasure. We stay together, Valerie added. Whatever happens, we're not separated. Ever. I would never dream of parting you. Kieran's fingers traced along both their jaws simultaneously. You're meant to be together. A matched set. Dividing you would be like tearing a painting in half. And if we decide this isn't working, Vivian continued, if we want to leave, you let us go. No punishment, no revenge. Fair, though I doubt that will happen. Kieran's confidence was absolute. Any other conditions? Just one more, Valerie said quietly. Be honest with us. About what you want, what you expect. We're navigating a world we don't understand. We need truth, not pretty lies. Always, Kieran promised. His hands cupped both their faces now, cold and strong. Then let me be honest right now. I want you in ways I don't have words for. I want to strip away every inhibition, every fear, every reservation, until you're nothing but sensation and need. I want to hear you beg for release. I want to taste every inch of your skin. I want to bury myself so deep inside you that you forget where you end, and I begin. The raw hunger in his voice made Vivian's core clench with want. Her breath came faster, matching Valerie's quickening rhythm beside her. But more than that, Kieran continued, his voice softening. I want to know you. Your dreams. Your fears. What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? I want slow mornings where we talk over coffee. Quiet evenings where we simply exist together. His thumbs brushed across their lips. I want everything you are, not just your bodies, though I crave those desperately. I want your minds, your hearts, your souls. That's terrifying, Vivian whispered. I know, Kieran agreed. His silver eyes held absolute certainty. But it's also inevitable. You feel it too. This pull between us. Like gravity. Like fate. He released them and stood, giving them space. For now, you'll settle in. Learn the house. Meet my staff. Tonight there's a gathering of the Vampire Council. You'll attend with me, introduced as my companions. It will establish your protection publicly. What should we expect? Valerie asked. Politics? Posturing? Territorial displays? Kieran's smile was sharp. Vampires love drama. You'll be stared at, whispered about, possibly propositioned by those foolish enough to test my boundaries. His voice hardened. Ignore them. Stay close to me. Let everyone see that you're mine. Yours, Vivian repeated. She should object to that possessive claim. Instead, heat raced through her at the word. For the rest of the day, they explored the house with Mrs. Laurent as their guide. The place was enormous, sprawling across what must be an entire city block. Some rooms were elegant and modern. Others felt frozen in time from different centuries. This was Lord Kieran's study during the Ming Dynasty, Mrs. Laurent said, showing them a room filled with delicate Chinese furniture and scroll paintings. He lived in Beijing for a century before relocating here. He really is ancient, Valerie whispered to Vivienne as they moved through corridors lined with artifacts from dozens of cultures. They met the staff, a mix of humans and vampires, all of whom treated the twins with a respect that bordered on reverence. Word had clearly spread that they were under Kieran's personal protection. By evening, Vivian's head spun with information and sensory overload. The house was beautiful, but overwhelming. The staff was kind, but clearly in awe of their master. And everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of Kieran's vast age and accumulated wealth. Mrs. Laurent appeared at their door as sunset painted the sky crimson. Lord Kieran has selected gowns for tonight's gathering. If you'll permit me to help you prepare? The gowns were exquisite, matching in design but subtly different in detail. They were made of silk so fine it felt like liquid. Deep sapphire blue that would make their ice blue eyes pop. The necklines were modest, the skirts flowing. But the backs were completely bare, exposing pale skin from neck to the small of their backs. He wants everyone to see, Mrs. Laurent said, as she helped Vivian into hers, that you're untouched, unmarked, that no vampire has claimed you with their bite yet. Yet, Vivian noticed the word. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a princess from a fairy tale. The gown molded to her curves, the bare back making her feel simultaneously modest and incredibly exposed. Beside her, Valerie looked identical, a perfect mirror. Together they were breathtaking, ethereal, like twin moon goddesses. Mrs. Laurent applied minimal makeup, just enough to enhance their features. She left their platinum hair loose, cascading down their bare backs. Finally, she presented jewelry, delicate sapphire earrings and matching necklaces that settled into the hollows of their throats. These belong to Lord Kieran's mother, she said quietly, given to her by his father on their wedding night. He's never allowed anyone else to wear them. The weight of that statement settled over them. These weren't just jewels, they were a statement, a claim. A soft knock at the door made them turn. Kieran entered, and Vivian's breath caught. He wore formal attire, a suit that looked like it cost more than most cars, tailored perfectly to his tall frame. His dark hair was pulled back, emphasizing the sharp beauty of his features. But it was his eyes that arrested her. Those silver depths burned with hunger barely leashed as they traced over both twins. Exquisite, he breathed. Absolutely exquisite. He moved closer, circling them slowly. The gowns are perfect. The jewels suit you. His fingers traced lightly down Vivian's bare spine, and she shivered at the icy touch. You'll be the most beautiful creatures at the gathering. Won't that cause problems? Valerie asked. You said vampires would be territorial. They'll be jealous, which is exactly the point. Kieran's smile was sharp. Let them see what I've claimed. Let them understand that these beauties are mine and mine alone. He offered an arm to each twin. Shall we? And remember, stay close. Don't drink anything offered by another vampire. Don't accept any invitations to dance or speak privately. You're under my protection, but some will test those boundaries. The gathering was held in an underground venue that rivaled any luxury hotel. Vampires filled an enormous ballroom, all dressed in formal wear, all impossibly beautiful. Music played, champagne flowed, but there was an undercurrent of danger that made Vivian's skin prickle. The moment they entered, all conversation stopped. Every eye turned to them. Vivienne felt the weight of hundreds of predatory gazes assessing, calculating, coveting. Kieran's hands tightened slightly on their arms, a silent reassurance. He led them through the crowd, nodding to some vampires, ignoring others. Finally, he stopped before a raised dais where 3 figures sat. The Vampire Council, he murmured. Show respect, but don't grovel. The council members were ancient. Vivian could feel it radiating from them. Power that made the air thick and hard to breathe. The center figure, a woman with silver hair and violet eyes, spoke first. Lord Kieran, you've brought companions. How delightful. Lady Morgana, Kieran inclined his head. May I present Vivian and Valerie Chen. They are under my personal protection and will reside in my household indefinitely. How unprecedented, a male council member drawled. He had copper skin and eyes like molten gold. Taking human companions. Have you grown soft in your old age, Kieran? I've grown selective, Kieran replied smoothly. These 2 are extraordinary. Identical twins with pure bloodlines. I'm sure you can appreciate their rarity. Oh, we appreciate it, the 3rd council member purred. She was younger looking than the others, with white blonde hair and a predatory smile. The question is, are you willing to share? No. The single word cracked through the ballroom like a whip. Kieran's power flooded the space, making vampires flinch and step back. These women are mine. Mine to protect. Mine to claim. Mine in every possible sense. Anyone who touches them forfeits their existence. Am I clear? Silence. Absolute suffocating silence. Then Lady Morgana laughed, the sound like breaking glass. So protective already. How fascinating. Very well, Lord Kieran. Your claim is noted and recognized. She looked at the twins with ancient eyes. Welcome to our world, little ones. Try not to break. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and carefully veiled threats. Vampires circled, testing, probing, trying to determine the twins' value and Kieran's commitment. Through it all, he remained a constant presence, his hands never leaving their arms, his body positioned to shield them from the worst of the predatory attention. Finally, as the gathering wound down, a male vampire approached. He was beautiful in that timeless way all vampires were, with dark skin and eyes like polished onyx. Lord Kieran, he said smoothly, your companions are lovely. I wonder if they might honor me with a dance? No, Kieran's voice was cold. I meant no disrespect, the vampire continued. Merely an appreciation of beauty. Then appreciate from a distance. Kieran's power pushed outward slightly. They're not available for dancing, or conversation, or anything beyond observation. The vampire's eyes narrowed. You can't keep them locked away forever. Eventually, they'll crave experiences you can't provide. I can provide everything they need, Kieran replied. Every pleasure, every sensation, every dark desire they don't even know they have yet. His silver eyes glittered dangerously. But I appreciate your concern. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're leaving. He guided the twins toward the exit, his movements controlled, but radiating barely suppressed violence. In the car ride home, silence stretched thick and tense. Vivian could feel Kieran's anger, cold and sharp. When they finally reached the house, he led them not to their bedroom but to his private study. Once inside, he poured himself something dark and thick that definitely wasn't wine. You did well tonight, he said, not looking at them. You represented yourselves with dignity and grace. Was that vampire serious? Valerie asked. About us craving experiences? He was testing my reaction, trying to determine how possessive I truly am. Kieran turned to face them, but he wasn't entirely wrong. His eyes burned. You will crave experiences, sensations, pleasures beyond anything your human existence has offered. Are you offering? The question slipped from Vivian before she could stop it. Kieran set down his glass very carefully. I've been offering since the moment I found you in that alley. The question is whether you're ready to accept. The twins looked at each other, that wordless communication flowing between them. They'd talked about this, wondered about it, felt the pull toward this dangerous, beautiful creature who promised pleasure beyond imagining. We want to understand, Valerie said slowly, what you're offering, what it would mean. Come here, Kieran commanded softly. They moved toward him, drawn by that invisible thread of attraction. He waited until they stood directly before him, then reached out and traced his fingers down their bare backs simultaneously. Both twins shivered at the icy touch. What I'm offering, he said, his voice dropping to a dark purr, is pleasure so intense it borders on pain, sensation that will ruin you for any other touch. His fingers traced lower, skating along the edge of their gowns. I want to worship every inch of your skin. Learn what makes you gasp, what makes you beg, what makes you scream my name. His hands moved to their faces now, cradling them with surprising gentleness. I want to strip away these beautiful gowns, lay you down on silk sheets. Take my time exploring every curve, every hollow, every secret place. His thumbs brushed across their lips. I want to taste you until you can't remember your own names. Until the only word you can form is please. Vivian's knees went weak. The heat between her thighs had become an ache, a desperate need for something she'd never experienced. Beside her, Valerie's breathing had gone ragged. But, Kieran continued, stepping back, only when you're ready. Only when you beg me for it. Because when I finally take you, when I finally make you mine completely, there's no going back. You'll be ruined for anyone else. You'll crave my touch like air. You'll need me in ways that terrify you. We already need you, Vivian admitted, the words tumbling out. We ache. We can't sleep for wanting. Our bodies betrayed us the moment you touched us. I know. Kieran's smile was knowing. I can smell your arousal, taste it in the air. You're soaked for me right now, both of you. His eyes darkened. The question is, are you brave enough to do something about it? What do you want us to do? Valerie asked, her voice shaking. Kieran moved to a chair and sat, spreading his legs in an unmistakably dominant posture. I want you to show me, he said. I want you to prove how much you need this, how much you're willing to surrender. Show you how, Vivienne demanded. His smile was pure sin. Will you stay if we undress? The question hung in the air, provocative, impossible, perfect. The twins looked at each other. This was it. The moment where everything changed. Where they crossed from innocent to knowing. Where they surrendered to desires they'd never allowed themselves to feel. Together, moving in perfect synchronization, they reached for their gown zippers. The sound of silk sliding against skin was deafening in the quiet study. Vivian's fingers trembled as she lowered the zipper down her spine, feeling the dress loosen around her body. Beside her, Valerie mirrored the movement exactly, their years of twin synchronization making them move as one entity. Stay, Kieran commanded, his silver eyes blazing as the gowns began to slip. His voice was rougher now, strained with barely controlled hunger. Look at me while you do this. I want to see your eyes. Want to watch awareness dawn as you realize what you're offering. Vivienne met his gaze and held it. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. The sapphire silk slid down her shoulders, caught briefly on the curve of her chest, then continued its descent. She wasn't wearing anything underneath. The dress had been designed to be worn against bare skin, and now that skin was being revealed inch by torturous inch. Beside her, Valerie's dress followed the same path. The twins had always been identical in every way, their bodies mirror images of perfection. Pale skin like porcelain, curves that were subtle but devastating. They stood there as the gowns pooled at their feet, completely naked except for the sapphire jewelry at their throats and ears. Don't move. Kieran's voice was barely human now, thick with desire. Let me look at you. Let me memorize every line, every curve, every perfect inch. His silver eyes traced over them with the intensity of a physical touch. Vivienne felt her body respond, her skin flushing pink, her nipples tightening into hard peaks despite the warmth of the room. Between her thighs, she was already slick with want, her body preparing itself for pleasures it had never known. Exquisite, Kieran breathed. More beautiful than anything I've seen in 3,000 years. His hands gripped the arms of his chair, knuckles white with the effort of restraining himself. You're trembling. Are you afraid? No, Vivienne whispered. Not afraid. Just overwhelmed. Wanting, Valerie added, her voice shaking. Needing. We've never felt like this before. Never wanted anything this desperately. Good. Kieran stood slowly, unbuttoning his jacket with deliberate movements. Because I'm going to teach you what real need feels like. What it means to crave someone so completely that breathing becomes secondary. He shrugged out of the jacket, then began unbuttoning his shirt with maddening slowness. Each button revealed more pale skin, more defined muscle. When the shirt finally fell away, Vivian's breath caught. His body was a work of art, sculpted by millennia into absolute perfection. Broad shoulders tapered to a narrow waist, muscles defined every plane and hollow, and his skin, that impossibly pale skin, seemed to glow in the low light. Come here, he commanded softly. The twins moved toward him as if pulled by invisible strings. When they stood within arm's reach, Kieran reached out and traced his cold fingers down their sides simultaneously. Both women gasped at the sensation, ice against fevered flesh creating sparks that raced through their nervous systems. I'm going to touch you now, he murmured, his voice dark silk and promises. Everywhere. Learn every sound you make, every place that makes you gasp. His hands slid up their ribs, thumbs brushing the undersides of their chests. And you're going to let me. You're going to stand here and take everything I give you until you can't stand anymore. His thumbs brushed over their hardened peaks, and both twins cried out. The sensation so intense, it bordered on pain. Kieran smiled, dangerous and knowing, so sensitive, so responsive. He circled those aching points with deliberate precision. I haven't even begun, and you're already falling apart. Please, Vivienne heard herself beg, though she wasn't sure what she was asking for. More? Less? Everything? Please what? Kieran's hands continued their torturous exploration, mapping every curve, every hollow. Tell me what you need. We don't know, Valerie admitted, her voice breaking. We've never done this. Never felt this. We need you to show us. Something shifted in Kieran's expression. The predatory hunger softened slightly, replaced by something almost tender. Then I'll teach you, he promised. Every pleasure your bodies are capable of, every sensation that will make you scream. But slowly, carefully, because your first time deserves to be perfect. His hand slid lower, tracing the curves of their waists, the flare of their hips. When his fingers brushed the apex of their thighs, both twins nearly collapsed. The sensation was electric, overwhelming, impossibly intense. So wet for me, Kieran groaned, his control clearly fraying. Soaked and ready, and you don't even understand what your bodies are begging for. His fingers traced through their slickness, exploring with deliberate thoroughness. But you will. Before this night ends, you'll understand exactly what it means to surrender completely. He guided them backward until their legs hit the edge of a plush sofa. Sit, he commanded. Spread your legs. Let me see all of you. They obeyed without thought, their bodies moving on instinct, sitting side by side, legs parted, completely exposed to his burning gaze. Vivienne had never felt so vulnerable and so powerful at the same time. This ancient vampire was looking at them like they were the most precious things in existence. Perfect. Kieran knelt between them, his hands on their inner thighs. Absolutely perfect. He leaned closer, his breath cool against heated flesh. I'm going to taste you now. Both of you. Learn your flavor, your texture, every secret your bodies have been keeping. His mouth descended on Vivienne first, and the world shattered into pure sensation. His tongue traced through her folds with expert precision, finding places she didn't know existed. Each stroke sent lightning racing up her spine. Each swirl made her hips buck involuntarily. This was beyond anything she'd imagined, beyond pleasure into something transcendent. Then he moved to Valerie, giving her twin the same devoted attention. Vivienne watched through heavy-lidded eyes as her sister's head fell back, mouth opening in a silent scream. Kieran's dark head moved between Valerie's pale thighs, his tongue working magic that made her shake and gasp and plead. He alternated between them, bringing each to the edge of something vast and terrifying before pulling back. Building the tension higher and higher until Vivienne thought she might die from the need. Her entire world had narrowed to the places where Kieran's mouth touched, where his fingers explored, where his cold skin met their burning flesh. Please. Both twins begged in unison, their voices blending. Please, we can't take any more. We need... What do you need? Kieran lifted his head, his lips glistening. Tell me. Say it. Release. Vivienne sobbed. We need to fall. Need to shatter. Need you to finish what you started. Kieran's smile was pure masculine satisfaction. Then fall, he commanded. His mouth returned to Vivienne while his fingers filled Valerie. Let go. Surrender. Give me everything. The climax hit Vivienne like a tidal wave, crashing through her body with devastating force. Every muscle tensed, every nerve sang, every cell exploded with pleasure so intense it bordered on agony. She heard herself screaming, heard Valerie's answering cry as her twin reached the same peak simultaneously. They shattered together, as they'd done everything their entire lives. Two bodies moving as one, experiencing transcendence in perfect synchronization. The pleasure seemed endless, rolling through them in waves that left them gasping and trembling. When Vivienne finally surfaced, she found Kieran watching them with those silver eyes full of wonder and possession. That was just the beginning, he promised, his voice rough. Just the first lesson. Before I'm done with you, you'll know pleasures that will ruin you for eternity. He gathered them both into his arms, their naked bodies pressed against his cool skin. And you're mine now, completely, irrevocably mine. Say it. Tell me you belong to me. We're yours, the twins whispered together, their voices blending into one. Yours in every way that matters. Kieran's arms tightened around them. Yes, he breathed against their hair. Mine to protect. Mine to pleasure. Mine to keep forever. And as they lay there in the aftermath, still trembling from their first taste of real pleasure, Vivienne knew there was no going back. They'd crossed a threshold tonight that could never be uncrossed. They belonged to a vampire king now, and somehow, that felt exactly right. The question wasn't whether they'd stay anymore. The question was how they'd ever survived without this, without him. Without knowing what it felt like to be claimed so completely that your very soul resonated with belonging. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The vampire world would test them, tempt them, try to tear them away. But tonight, wrapped in Kieran's arms, marked by his touch, ruined for anyone else, they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together, always together, and finally, devastatingly, completely his.